Well, a very good morning to everyone, and I could not be more delighted in opening what is the inaugural Data Talks event, and welcome colleagues from all of our public sector partners throughout the whole of Essex, as well as guests, many guests indeed, from across the country. A really warm welcome to you. Now, this event is being hosted by the Essex Centre of Data Analytics. We call it ECTA. You'll hear that acronym many times over the next couple of days, I'm sure. And we think that Data Talks provides an opportunity to unite us, bringing people and data that I and my co-sponsors of ECTA, BJ Harrington, who's the Chief Essex Police, and you'll be hearing from BJ particularly tomorrow, and Anthony Forster, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Essex. The three of us feel really passionately about this subject. We believe that no matter your role or your organisation, data and analytics can help all of us to navigate the increasingly complexity that we face of problems. And data is one of the biggest untapped potentials in the public sector. And I think we'll all recognise that we are operating in an age of exponential data growth, growing at a phenomenal rate every single day. So if we get this right, harnessing its usefulness effectively, we think has the potential to redefine how we deliver public services. It'll help us to improve productivity, target support to those that really need it, help us to rethink about how do we redesign our services and how do we prioritize effectively and plan for the future, all in aid of helping us to stay one step ahead. So in our roles, we are entrusted with the responsibility of using data to inform our decisions. Whether you're a senior leader setting organizational strategy, maybe a commissioner that's using data to sort of analyze the market and understand our residents, or perhaps a team manager using it to manage performance or indeed prioritize cases, or even a support service using data to optimize internal processes. So whether you collect data, analyze data, or use it, every single one of us, it has a role to play. So over the three very exciting data days, Data Talks offers you a mixed program of content, we think, for everyone that's interested in unlocking the potential of data. During Data Talks, you're going to hear from more than 20 different organizations on such a broad range of subjects on everything from AI to data ethics, linked data to data literacy, maybe starting small to sharing well. We think that you're sure to discover something on Data Talks program that resonates with you. And if you can see on the screen now, you can see that incredibly extensive list of events for you to tap into as well. I really do encourage you to try to attend as many as you possibly can. But to today, and today's program of Data Talks will really focus on culture and innovation. And some of those sessions will be covering case for change, from strategy to implementation and beyond. An introductory session to understanding that what is artificial intelligence and what other local authorities are already doing in this space. So if you're keen to go beyond the hype, we have a session getting under the bonnet on AI to explore pragmatic opportunities and maybe identify areas that require cautious consideration. And if that wasn't enough, someone kindly phoned me on Teams as I'm speaking to you, then if that isn't enough, why not join Essex County Council colleagues, Mid and South Essex ICS and Essex County Fire and Rescue Service to hear how data and analytics is being applied to help public sector organisations plan. So there we go. We've seen the program. I really hope that you enjoy the sessions and that they enable you particularly to continue the conversations within your own organizations and your own teams, maybe exploring new problems, creating that case for change, investing in the skills and capabilities, sharing data and making new connections. Who knows what you might achieve? So finally, before I hand over, can I just say thank you to the 24 organisations, and there you can see some of them there, that are delivering all sorts of addresses through this event as well. Collaboration and systems working is so critical to address the challenges that we face, and we just can't do it alone. And I'm grateful to all those colleagues who have given their time to sharing their learning with all of us. So let's carry the momentum forward, building on the insights gained here to drive positive change within our organisations and within our systems. So thank you for all of your participation. Now it's my very great pleasure to hand over to Moira Bruin, who will introduce the first session. Moira, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gavin, and good morning, everybody. So, as you've heard Gavin say, every organisation needs a robust and right up-to-date data strategy, because this helps to ensure that your use of data is directly aligned to your business objectives. And organisations that collect and analyse data aligned to what they're trying to achieve, they unlock invaluable insights which help make better decisions, drive innovation, and importantly, adapt faster than ever. And it's because of this immense potential that data has become one of the world's most valuable assets. And actually, it's right up there now alongside gold and oil. But unlike traditional commodities such as gold and oil, the value of data amplifies when it's shared and used. And in a world where budgets are squeezed for us all, we really do need to understand our community's needs and be clear about how we target our services to make sure we get to those who need us the most. So in this session, we'll be hearing from Essex County Council and Essex County Fire and Rescue Service, who are sharing their journey and their stories on how they have accelerated the use of data and analytics within their organisations. And what you might note is that whilst you hear about two very different organisations, two very different approaches, and two very different stories, they have some things in common that we can all learn from. In Essex County Fire and Rescue, our journey started around 4 years ago when we chose to start small. We chose to gradually win around managers with effective and trustworthy performance data that once they tasted it, they couldn't get enough of it. And this created a thirst for performance data and created the case for investment in the capability. In Essex County Council, they went big and off the blocks very early, professionalising a capability and then moving to formalise and implement a data strategy. But both approaches, although very different, have created a really positive data culture, which is such a key part of your data excellence journey. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome both Nicola Mallett, Head of Profession for Data and Analytics at Essex County Council, and Lucy Clayton, Assurance, Performance and Policy Manager at Essex County Fire and Rescue Service. And Nikki and Lucy are going to share their experiences and approaches on what makes a successful strategy and share some useful lessons learned and tips along the way to help us all cultivate successful change. Thank you. And Nikki, Lucy, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Moira. And thank you, Gavin, for kind of welcome to day one for Data Talks. We're super excited to be part of the session. And for background, my name is Nicola Mallett. I'm the Head of Profession for Data Analytics at Essex County Council. And I've been leading our data strategy work here in the county. And to kick things off, I'd just love to know, as the first poll question to warm you up, do you have a data strategy in your own organisation? So feel free to pop your answer in there. And I'll just kind of talk you through a little bit about where our journey started in Essex County Council. So it started back in 2018 when we moved from one big intelligence and insight team into professional centres of excellence. With a growing demand for the value of analytical and research insight that was actually being delivered, and a desire to move towards more accessible, regular reporting via self-serve tools, we took the brave decision quite early on to actually redesign. So we set up a profession for data analytics to help our organisation make better use of the data it holds of all different varieties. The profession had a focus on generating insight from advanced and predictive analytics, And it wasn't just a focus on the here and now on the left-hand side of this diagram, using data to help us monitor the situation and kind of focus on queries, reports, and standardized alerts, but really focused on helping us think about how we should use data to think about the future. What could happen next? Why? And what might we do about it? As public sector organisations, we feel very comfortable in the bottom left-hand side here, asking questions like what happened, where, and when. And these questions are okay, but they're a little bit reactive, and it allows you to kind of reflect on what has happened after an event has already occurred. So with the birth of data analytics, we encourage the organisation to spend more time thinking about proactive questions, such as what could happen next? Can we predict an outcome before it happens? And what might happen if we acted differently in the first place? And what we found is that we are not alone in that thinking and that journey. So from some of our research, we know that a decade ago, traditional intelligence and insight teams within the public sector were about 70% focused on business intelligence, performance and reporting questions. And due to that increase in data volume, data velocity and variety of different data, along with more complex and cross-cutting challenges, there's been a real shift in demand for more value-add analytical approaches. And that's really meant that we've had to change the type of capacity and capability we have to undertake that different type of work. National research actually indicates that companies that invest in analytics are 33% higher in relation to revenue growth, 12 times more profit growth, and 32% higher return on invested capital than their peers. So with such value at stake and that could be achieved, how do you know where to start? So over the first 18 months within our kind of profession for data analytics, we had some success on some projects. We had some failures on some other projects, but we soon began to realise that we needed a bit of a plan to actually address some of the conditions for success within our organisation and to help us accelerate a pace of change that we're wanting to see. And it was around this time actually that the pandemic happened, and the demand for real-time evidence to support kind of data-informed decisions actually became mainstream across the globe. And it became kind of massive demand for us and everybody else. People needed data to help them target their responses and keep people safe. People needed data to help them prepare for what was coming next and plan resources accordingly. People needed data to help us recover and get back on track and manage our backlogs in the easiest way possible, whilst making sure the right people were seen at the right time. So in Essex, we set out to understand our starting position and actually undertook our first ever data maturity assessment in 2020. We used the basis of the local government maturity framework, and this helped us to assess our strengths, our weaknesses, and importantly, gave us some insights from our decision makers across all parts of our business. We've done this via a series of interviews as part of a self-assessment process, and it helped us to understand the big areas of concern that people had and some of the goals that people wanted to achieve with their own data. So our top tip number one is we've used the data maturity framework. It had 20 simple questions for us over 5 different domains. These included things like data use. So how do we use data to inform our decisions? How do we use it to create insights? How do we use it to collaborate? There were some questions about data awareness and data culture. So what's our attitudes towards data in terms of sponsorship, strategy, literacy? We had some questions about data management. So how is our data stored, accessed, shared, and quality assured? And then we had some questions about data skills and capabilities. So do we have the right capacity and capability to undertake data analysis and data science? And lastly, not forgetting data governance. So what are our governance arrangements for data in relation to ownership, ethics, data sharing, data privacy, and data protection? And asking all of these questions helped us to understand what our starting position was. When we analysed the results that are on the spider diagram on the right-hand side of this slide, we actually saw that Essex County Council come out as intermediate in relation to our level of maturity. And whilst that was helpful, what I think was more helpful was the comments that we got back in relation to the areas that we needed to work through. And what was really interesting to us is there was a wide variance of people's perceptions in relation to our level of maturity from different parts of our business and in different domains. So for us, that became the area of focus that we needed to focus on as part of writing a data strategy. So some of the problem statements that we came across was that we had to improve how we collaborate with our partners to share data as part of the norm and not the exception. We needed to have a modern data platform that helped us to have a single version of good, reliable data that was held in one place and not fragmented with different standards from different people. We needed to ensure that we worked across the organisation to build capability and to develop the skills required for a modern day analytics team. And we needed to foster a positive data culture that actually saw the value in data, treated it as an asset, and actually championed the use of analytics to drive decisions. And for us, this led us to 4 pillars in our data strategy. So this was around partners, process, people, and potential. And so those pillars, along with our kind of problem statements that were articulated by our stakeholders and our customers, actually led us to commit to 12 ambition statements to try to achieve by 2025. These ambition statements would really help us to accelerate our use of data analytics in the organisation. So we said some things like we would adopt data standards to collect consistent data. We would develop a place-based approach to data management to work beyond our own organisational boundary. We would have a modern cloud-based infrastructure to manage data and reports and provide a single version of data sets. And we would adopt a data culture and have communities of practice that come together to share skills and to develop pipelines of projects to support business goals. And I thought to myself, great, fantastic, we've done it. We've got a strategy. We've got a strategy for the next 4 years, and data would soon be everyone's business, which became the tagline of our strategy. And shortly after, once it was signed off, the reality really started to set in. And I thought, OK, we've got it signed off, but now we actually have to implement this strategy and deliver it. And actually, we really needed everybody in the organisation to be on board to help deliver it. It wasn't just within my gift. It was kind of everybody had a role to play to help us deliver the activities and the goals we set out on the slide. And actually, that was a really difficult thing to do. So over the first 8 months to possibly a year, armed with a signed copy of our data strategy, I started to sink into a giant tub of kind of very plain and boring ice cream, and I really started to panic. I did wonder why on earth we'd even wrote one if it was going to be quite hard to deliver, and where I could go to get help and support. So it was at this point we started working with Gartner, which was very timely to get an outside perspective. And I really learned that a journey to becoming data-driven is just that. It's a journey. It's a continual journey, not a one-off set of programs or set of activities. And it's not a set of enforcements. We're asking more people to do more stuff on top of their day jobs. And we realised that if we really wanted to realise the ambition of the strategy, really wanted to unlock the value that data could actually bring us and maximise the skills we had to our fullest potential, and we can't just be an island. The strategy can't just be a door wedge that's printed and sat on a shelf and gathered dust. So we needed to stop thinking about it as a set of products, projects and deliverables, and really start thinking about it as new ways of working, habits and behaviours that we wanted the organisation to adopt because they could actually see the benefit in doing so. So with a bit of check and challenge, what we did realise is that whilst our strategy contained all the right ingredients, the biggest flaw that it wasn't actually aligned to business outcomes in the first place. And no wonder it was hard to get a little bit of buy-in to get us going. So what we done is found our why. We changed how we thought about it from a large tub of boring ice cream into a much more easy to digest ice cream sundae. Lots of different flavours to interest and excite everybody, and something really inviting that everyone wants a spoonful of because they can see that cherry on the top and go right the way down. We started talking about it as something that helps managers to actually achieve their goals and started to align some of our initiatives to our business plan priorities. And that really helped it jump off the page and immerse people. We turned the strategy into something that people could easily see the business value from and actually understand their role to play in helping us deliver it as part of their everyday roles and responsibilities. We rethought our quite long set of ambitions and recommendations by starting with the why and aligned them to key parts of our organisation's strategy, so they actually became vital enablers to help us achieve some goals. For example, we aligned the role of data literacy agenda to our people plan. We aligned the need for a modern data warehouse to our cloud modernisation programme. And we aligned some of our data sharing projects to the health and social care integration agenda. So top tip, we learnt that a good data strategy is a business strategy infused with data and not the other way around. And that a successful data strategy is one that's kept alive, is kept agile, and it grows as the organisation evolves. It's not something that's time-bound. It's not a static document or a set of tasks and finished group activities, but an enterprise-wide approach and a model to how we think about and adopt good data culture. And that's allowed us to keep the data strategy alive. It's allowed us to keep it embedded within business value and business goals. And it's allowed us to help to continually evolve what we need to be working through next. Now, warning, that is not a simple thing to do. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's a long-term and ambitious goal for kind of future success. But it's not just for us as a team or a profession. It's for the organisation and the outcomes we want to achieve for our residents. It's an opportunity to get data analytics embedded across the organisation and to get the workforce alongside that. It's an opportunity for us to be a centre of excellence and set standards. But most importantly, it's an opportunity to use data analytics to improve the lives of our residents and our vulnerable service users. So to make sure that data can be everyone's business and part of our strategy, we made sure we described it in a way that everybody could understand. Make it engaging, making it accessible, making it so something everybody can understand. For example, we describe analytics as the discovery, the interpretation, and the communication of meaningful patterns in data, and then applying those patterns towards effective decision making. As I think what was alluded to earlier in the introduction, we do this every day. We do it in our personal lives, we do it in our professional lives, whether that be using comparison sites to compare car insurance to make sure we're getting the best deal based on our household situation, whether that's picking a restaurant based on TripAdvisor ratings, or working out what to pack when you go on holiday based on weather forecasts. All of these decisions are based on some form of data and analytics, and that's being fed back to us to help us make our decisions. And that's what we kind of describe analytics professions as here to do. They make best up way to help us drive data-informed decisions. Or, as a tagline, but simply, we use data from the past to help us prepare for the future. And in our organisation, for Essex County Council, we say that analytics can help our organisation to do three things. One, plan and prepare for the future by understanding trends, forecasts, and thinking about what might happen next, where and when. Two, to prioritise or target activity to people or places that might need it the most, using grouping and clustering to identify cohorts of most interest and identify any key risk factors or protective factors that might be of importance. And then thirdly, we use that to help us predict and to prevent outcomes before they arise. So how do we support early intervention and prevent, reduce or delay something from occurring in the first place? And all of these decisions based on data help us to have confidence in the choices that we're making and minimise or reduce risk. So finally, our last top tip from Essex County Council is that work with champions and sponsors. So we've worked with champions and sponsors from the very top to support system-wide collaboration and data transformation. And we're lucky enough to have three brilliant sponsors that are opening each of the Data Talk sessions today. And they've really advocated for the use of data analytics within their own organisations. We also have a data strategy board with leadership from across all parts of our business to help keep us accountable and on track to the things that we said we would do. These champions provide strong advocacy that helps us to lead the agenda. They help us to shape initiatives and provide opportunities for change. And they help to promote culture change with the use of data analytics within their own teams and their own functions. So, for example, we in data analytics might involve them in identifying new opportunities, defining and celebrating what does good look like. We keep them informed and ensure that they understand the kind of desired outcomes and the impact of the planned work. We ensure that the organisational priorities are maintained and built into kind of future work plans and the strategy, and we will collaborate with them along the journey for every single project. In return, our sponsors and champions share our vision and passion for the commitment of use of data throughout the organisation. They demonstrate good behaviours and lead positive culture change within the space. They provide direction and oversight, and they engage with us in ongoing conversations to actively collaborate with us. In the early days, we did choose to work with stakeholders with a very keen interest and high engagement levels, and a real desire to make sure they're committed to using the evidence to inform their action, regardless of what that insight was, whether it was positive or negative. And that meant we were a little bit targeted in our response in relation to the work that we took on, what we said no to, and how we prioritised some of the projects that we could do. So we thought about feasibility, suitability, but also readiness and maturity to act on the insight. We have gone on to use some of those engaged stakeholders as stretch friends, acting as advocates and writing up case studies of their successes. We provide information and inspiration to the organisation and use the kind of customer's voice to help us gain more trust, credibility and buy-in from others to help spread that message of change. We've developed an insight portal where we can share all of our pieces of work to the whole organisation, and developed insight newsletters that go out to all managers and heads of so they can share messages on our behalf. So where are we now with some of those kind of key activities? 4 years have passed and we've already delivered many of the short and medium-term goals of the data strategy. We are amazingly on track and we're midway through some of our longer-term goals that are going to be achieved by 2025. We've accelerated and moved forward our level of maturity in 3 big areas. These include data management. So we now have a cloud-based interoperable platform for data and reports. And we've moved over 800 gigabytes of data from an on-prem environment into the cloud by using Azure Analytics. We've also moved and redesigned over 100 self-serve reports for social care staff to use. Some of the impact of that is that it's created operational efficiencies and kind of the time taken to actually run the reports and the pipeline for refreshing them has actually increased by, the speed has increased by about 80%. It's also improved the employee experience, providing a simpler, more reliable and accessible access to reports that are laid out in a more friendly way using Power BI. That's freed up some of the managers' time so they can focus on the day job and focus on the complex tasks and the decision making rather than trying to find data. We've actually got a session in day 3 if you want to join it to understand what our kind of move to the cloud looked like and what the silver lining has been for us. The second area, which we have delivered quite a lot of success around, is data literacy. So we've had over 700 people from across the Essex ecosystem engage with the data masterclass. We've had a further 2,000 people engage with the data literacy learning agenda within our own organisation. And they've learned things about what is analytics, what is data science, how to ask good questions, and how to work with data professionals. And again, you'll hear a little bit more about that story in relation to the end of the session today in day 1, where Claire McLean will be talking to us about speaking data with Richard Pulliston. And then lastly, we worked really hard to make sure we're connecting the data professionals together to share skills and knowledge with one another. We have over 200 data professionals that have been connected via our internal community of practice events and our analyst network called Be Part of the Equation with our partners. We've built our own internal capabilities via continued professional development and with the help of the University of Essex that's helped us to train our own talent. We have recruited in and kind of brought in the next wave of kind of future analysts into Essex County Council, again with great support from the University of Essex in relation to that talent pipeline. Again, if you're interested, we have more sessions on day 3 about kind of our data leaders forum and the analyst network. So final slide for me before I hand to Lucy. We have still got lots of work to do. We are by no means complete. This is a continual journey of evolution. And we're just in the middle of a refresh of our data maturity at the moment to see what difference it's made as a result of the activities we've kind of highlighted. What we do know is that the expectation and the maturity of our stakeholders has continued to grow, and the continual evolution of data analytics and AI means we will always need to continue to develop in this space. But what we do know is that we're on the right path to success, and we've built some fantastic relationships with our partners and experts to help us check and challenge and test ourselves along the way. Some successes. Last year, Data Analytics team became the double award winners for kind of the British Data Awards, and that included Public Sector Organisation of the Year and Innovation of the Year. And that highlights our real kind of strong commitment to the agenda in terms of data literacy and our innovative approaches to forecasting. We've calculated from our projects that we've delivered over the last kind of 12 to 18 months, £2.1 million worth of direct benefits to ECC as an organisation, and that actually rises to about 30 million across system-wide benefits. And we write these up as case studies along the way to help us continue to play back to the organisation. As I mentioned, we have strong foundations in place and new governance arrangements for some of our core data is now stored in the cloud. We want to continue that journey by rolling that out to all parts of our organisation over the next year. But we have that modern data stack now that's fit for the 21st century, which is Azure Analytics. It provides a single warehouse where data professionals can go and single views of our data sets. We also have a highly skilled kind of data workforce who are considered kind of experts in the field of analytics and data science. And we take the kind of best practice, quality, robust analytical approaches alongside ethical principles to help ensure that we're pushing boundaries in responsible ways. So whilst our journey has not always been straightforward, I do refer to it a little bit like building a house. So we kind of, over the last kind of few years, really set up the solid foundations on which to build. We've learned a lot of things and delighted to be able to kind of share these with you and others. And via ECTA, our Essex Centre for Data Analytics, we've been able to connect with other organisations across Essex, share our experiences, skills and knowledge with one another, and importantly, share our challenges. We might not all have the same size land, and we might all have different customer expectations in relation to the house type that they want to build. But being able to connect and share our challenges means we're just one step closer to a solution and actually building the right home. Personally, I've never constructed a house, but I think I can confidently say I've built a home for data analytics to flourish in ECC. So you might be sat there and think, well, that's all very well. Essex County Council is very large. I don't have a team as kind of large as kind of Essex. I only have one person, if that. Well, you are in luck. So Lucy from the fire service also started from this position, and I'll hand over to her to talk through the fire story.
Super. Nikki, I'm having a few issues with, I can't see the presentation on my screen, so I'll be trying it on my laptop, my phone as well. So please help if I struggle. Thank you and good morning. As Nikki said, our journey started back in 2020. Within the fire service, data was actually a blocker at this point in time. We had a really slow and antiquated system. It took about 10 minutes to log into the system, and then to access any report in there on top of that took about another 10 minutes. When we purchased the product, it was a market leader, but the market went way further ahead than what we were able to deliver at that point. The data in the system was only updated once a month, and it was updated for the month in arrears. So by the time we're publishing the data, sometimes it was about 6 weeks out of date. And so it was just telling us what had happened in the past, and we couldn't really gain any insight from it. The data that we had available in the system was actually only limited to one organisational data system, which quite an important one. It was our incident system, but actually is not one of the, well, it's really important. It's not the only system that we needed to have data on in order to drive change in the organisation. And the data that was in the system also wasn't granular enough to drive any level of change. So we could show performance at a station to say, this is your availability or this is your response times, but you wasn't able to look at the individual performance of the fire engine or by the different watches that were on there. And because of all of this, the majority of our workforce, our stations, didn't actually use the system at all because it was just too hard to get on and get the data. There was another team in the organisation who would spend once a month, they would log on and spend about a week going through and grabbing the information for each of our different stations and emailing that out to the officers. My team itself was incredibly small. We had a performance analyst and a system and data officer who managed the system, but we didn't have anyone else within the team to help us. And hopefully, or possibly familiar to people in the room, When people used to write reports in the organisation, they used to ask me for the data to back up the assumptions that are made within the reports, and decisions were made on gut feelings. And not because people didn't want to use the data, but due to the size of the team and the inadequacies of the system, it was incredibly hard to get the data and the information that they need to actually drive the change. And in terms of the team itself, we were incredibly passionate about data, was incredibly excited about data, and we delivered lots of little micro projects, but actually across the whole organisation, people didn't truly understand what it was as a team that we could do. So let's try change slide. Okay, so then we had an opportunity to change. I always try hard not to mention the pandemic so long afterwards, but it was actually a big opportunity to change within the team. We were noticing that when the pandemic happened, people and the lead up to it, people's data literacy levels were changing. It wasn't just the people within the team that understood data and charts. People were being bombarded with charts and information every single evening on the news. I didn't have to explain what a rate meant in terms of rate of incidents. And people knew that because Chris Ritty told them every single evening. I remember one evening my mum in her 60s called me up to explain what the R rate was and why I should be concerned about where the R rate was. And she'd never spoken to me about data before in the past, but I thought there is a tide of change. And as a team, we discussed that that was really important. It was a good chance to actually harness that change in attitude towards data. So we started producing weekly reports out for our service leadership team. Due to how rubbish that system was, it meant every Friday I had to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, logging on to my systems and slowly downloading data to put into Excels and then put into PowerPoint presentations to deliver to our senior leadership team for 9 o'clock for their meetings that they had. We also had a number of national drivers at this point. So the NFCC and the Home Office were asking us for information about our workforce and the incidents we were attending during COVID. We'd also just had our first HMIC FRS inspection. So that's like the fire services version of Ofsted. Alongside those inspections, we also needed to be sending data returns to the HMIC, which were twice a year. And the data that they were asking us for was different to what we'd produced previously. The questions should have been easy to answer, but they weren't easy for us to answer because our system hadn't been built up to deliver those. I actually remember sitting in one of the inspection interviews with the inspectors at that time, and they asked me, does the fire service use data to drive its organisational decisions? And hand on heart, I had to answer some of the time, but it wasn't consistent and it wasn't throughout the service. If we were asked to deliver a project on it, then we were using the data, but it wasn't universal against all of the decisions that were being made. At the same time this was happening, we had a new chief exec joining us who had come from an external organisation, and they were very data driven. And when they arrived, they were surprised about the lack of data that we had. My sister and Dayton's officer got a new job, and I had to go out to recruit to replace him. So we saw this as a real opportunity of what we wanted to change. So we stopped reporting and developing on our reporting system, and we kind of wanted to see how it landed with the organisation. What data did they start asking for? What complaints were we getting about the system? What was the data that was missing for them in order to identify changes that they need? Our system was end of life when we purchased the system. We purchased a number of reporting periods that we could report on, and that was due to run out in March 2021. We had no real budget to change our system, but like everyone else, we had jumped 2 feet into the world of Office 365, and that had gained us access to Power BI. So whilst we've taken the time to recruit, we were looking at the new technology, we were getting organisational requirements, and the main piece of the puzzle that we were looking for was getting the right person. And I'm really, really fortunate that the right person did turn up to the interview. They were full of energy, they were confident, they were highly competent, they weren't afraid to try new things, and most importantly, they were fueled by caffeine, and they delivered stuff at a rate of knots that I've never seen anyone deliver stuff before previously. And they were really keen, they saw the vision and they understood the vision of what we needed to do. And so that was really important for us, was having a clear vision. So Our vision was we needed to replace what we currently have with something better, and it needed to be as cheap as we could make it. So we had the new technology, we had the right person, and we had the momentum to change. So we made our decision to invest our time into Power BI with a SQL Server backend, and we designed that as a light data warehouse. So we was very keen to have fact tables and lookup tables, and it made sense with our limited timescales because we was utilising technology and skills that we already had within the team. We were a Microsoft house, and even our end users were comfortable with that. Office 365 and Teams really brought people's ICT literacy along within our organisation. We ran it as an informal project within the team, and by this I don't mean we didn't use project management methodologies. We did. We used it as an agile project and we delivered it within sprints. We just didn't lean into our I&C team to deliver that, as it was something we felt we were able to do within our team. We had a really good project sponsor who was an area manager. So that's a kind of like an assistant director level, and they were in charge of our response function. So those are the firefighters and fire stations. They really championed us. They were passionate about data themselves. They gave us a real clear direction and were happy to make decisions, which was the most important thing. And we did have to make right decisions. So we knew we couldn't deliver the product to the whole organisation. The service is far too big and far too varied, and we had such a short timescale. And we knew we couldn't deliver it. And as much as SLT were very brought into the idea of change and very hungry for more data, we made the decision actually that the SLT dashboard was our lowest priority that we needed to deliver. And it was the last one we was going to develop. If we wanted to make the change in the organisation and business improvements, we needed to focus on the 1% across that to make the improvement. And we couldn't hold people to account for data themselves they didn't have access to. So our approach was to give loads of information to our station manager, which is our middle manager level. And we took that decision as those are the ones that delegate information down, but also pass information up to the SLT level. And they sit across quite a lot of our service. And then in each iteration of our dashboard that we delivered after that, we aggregated the information up further. So we went from our station managers with aggregated information up to the group managers, and it aggregated up even more to our own managers. And then for SLT, they had a very outcome-focused dashboard, knowing that all of the data had been born out of many different data parts further down the chain. We also decided, that team I mentioned earlier that went in and created reports to all of our station managers, we didn't give them access to the system at all. It was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for everyone. It was taking away a good portion of their job and what they were really enjoyed. But we knew that if we didn't make our station managers access the data that they had, they wouldn't log into it. They would wait for the data to be delivered into their inbox. And we needed them to access it, and we needed them to use it, and we needed people to buy in. So our top tip around this is trust. So as a senior leader, it's trust your data experts and giving the advice about where to deliver it. Our senior leadership team understood our decision, and even if the short term for them was a little bit bumpy, in the long term we got the benefits from the whole organisation. So cracking that middle manager layer in the organisation was most important for us. When we launched our first dashboard, we launched it to surprisingly positive feedback, and I say this as our station managers weren't historically known as loving new technology, new changes. But actually, we soft launched our dashboard about 2 months before our previous system was due to become end of life. And this gave people the chance to use the new system while they still had the old system that they were comfortable using. And then we made ourselves as available as possible to other people. We provided one-to-one training when needed. We provided data dictionaries. We had our whole website providing training videos. We even built a Power BI that was just a training guide for people, so people could understand how to use Power BI, as we knew that was new technology, but also how to interpret the data on there, as we needed people to understand the data, improve their data literacy and understand what it was that we're showing them. The most important thing really for us was allowing people to challenge us on the data. People naturally, when we started presenting sometimes negative pictures of data, they would tell us that the data was wrong. So we made sure that we sat down with the people to unpick the data, understand the nuances and the filters that we applied to the data, and we allowed them to check it against their locally run spreadsheets and work out where the differences were. We didn't always get our data right every time, but allowing people to challenge and investigate the data and help us correct the data enabled them to buy into what it was that we were showing them. It raised their confidence in the data and us as the team. But the positive feedback was a lot. People would come past our team in the office and tell us that the new dashboard, but also other people coming past our team asking for a new dashboard. They weren't sure what they wanted on a dashboard, but they'd heard great things about other people about the dashboard, so they knew that they needed a dashboard, but they still didn't know what they wanted on it. But people did seem genuinely excited. We'd moved away from our really slow, sluggish system that only updated once a month for that month in arrears to a dashboard that was updating 4 times a day, and people didn't have to wait for us or the data. And our station managers became our best advert. It was just a really incredible time. So soon we had other teams wanting more data, and the demand was outstripping the actual resources that we had in the team. And we had to get creative about how we got resources within the team. So our finance team at the time were absolutely desperate for a dashboard, and it was a new system for us as well. We hadn't used the finance data before, but we were aware that our finance business partners didn't really get the chance to sit down with budget holders to talk to them about the finance because of how long it was taking to go through the end of month data with them. Finance were able to fund a resource within our team for us, and they funded that resource for 6 months. We agreed with them that as long as their dashboards were being delivered, that we would actually be able to use that resource to deliver other items in our work stack. And we were able to use this money to recruit a data scientist into the team, which may have been slightly overboard for the role that was needed, but what it allowed us to do was introduce the concept of data science into the fire service, and we were able to deliver some of the items in the work stack in a data science methodology as opposed to a numbers on the page methodology, which is kind of how we'd worked in the past. We also had a digital and data program that had been launched within the service, and we was able to use some of the money in that to fund a data engineer within our team, and that was a 12-month contract, and that was to start our transition from our on-prem SQL servers into cloud-hosted data solutions. And our prevention and protection teams. So these are the people that go out and interact with our communities and identify those people and places in our communities that are most at risk for fire and harm. They really wanted to harness the power of data, and they wanted to have more information. We weren't able to resource their demands, so they paid for somebody to sit within our team as well to specifically work on their data. And it was becoming really clear that the need for analytics and data was becoming embedded within all of service strategies. So whilst these teams were delivering valuable products for their customers that are paid for them, they were still only short-term contracts. So we were very keen to capture the benefits and the savings that they were making and the changes to the service that they were delivering. And I was able to showcase what the roles and the new roles were, what they would deliver for the service, and was able to put that into a business case for our service leadership team to say, these contracts are due to come to an end. If we revert back to where we were previously with 2 members of staff, this is what you'll be able to achieve as an organisation. If we stabilise the team, we can continue doing projects like this, or if we grow the team, we can deliver much more than what we've got at the moment. And it was really good to be able to actually showcase to the service leadership team what these new technologies could actually deliver to them, as opposed to just talk about the theory of them. And so my top tip on here is beg, borrow and steal. If you are a small team and you're getting lots of demands on you from the other parts of the organisation, see how they can help you, see whether they do have any spare capacity in their budgets to help fully fund or part fund a resource to deliver the information that they need. So one thing that we learned along the way was take little steps and not huge leaps, particularly when doing a culture change. We learnt this the hard way. We first delivered a huge dashboard for our prevention team. They'd sent us in hundreds of asks and asking us to deliver stuff slightly differently for them. And when we presented it to them, it was like, this is great. It's too much. We don't even know where to start, which was a little bit disheartening for our team, as we'd spent a lot of time delivering this product, which we felt was delivering them everything that they needed. But then we realised actually we can't expect people to be running when they're not even having introduced the newer concepts towards them. And we also learned that people didn't always think about what they were requesting for us. They kind of chucked about 100 different ideas at us, and actually they only really wanted about 10 of them. They were just thinking of ideas on the fly. So we learned to be a lot better in capturing our customers' requirements, and we embraced the term minimal viable product. So we didn't have to deliver perfection every time. We just sometimes needed to deliver something, get people using the minimal viable product, get comfortable on it, focus on our customers' needs and requirements, and then we could add to that product over time. And we took a much more business partnering approach with our customers, as we knew there was no point releasing data to our customers if they didn't know what it meant. And it was really disheartening for us when we released products to them and they just didn't use them. We also set our team's ambition. So we had a service ambition to be one of the best fire and rescue services in the country. So we thought, well, what does that look like for us? Well, we need to be one of the best data and analytics teams within the country. And we set that as our 5-year mission. And then we looked at all of the different products within the team. And we said, well, actually, if we want to be the best in data engineering in 5 years, what does that look like? And how do we take that over the next 5 years? And how do we deliver that in little bits, as opposed to just focusing on that big end goal? And a big portion of all of this was about promoting the team and promoting data literacy. But one of my tips on this would be about the business partner approach. We've really embraced that over the year. Now, moving on is how we got responsibility and accountability and ownership across the organisation. So once the dashboards have been published out there, we needed to ensure that people were being held account to the data and the performance that was being shown in those dashboards. We'd been able to get very good sponsorship and buy-in from our senior leaders at this point. So from station managers all the way up, one-to-ones were starting to be structured around the information that was shown in the dashboards. Our chief, Rick, would sometimes just come up to people in the office and say, I've seen that this is the availability at this station. What's happened there? And he would expect people to know the answer to it because he'd seen the data on his dashboard and knew that they had information in there. So the questions were starting to be asked from around the organisation. We'd also launched our continuous improvement board that was chaired by our Deputy Chief Fire Officer, Moira, who spoke earlier on. And that is where all of our performance and continuous improvement information went through there. It was attended, it is attended by our area managers and our assistant directors, and they're expected to be reporting on their performance, what they've done to improve performance and what they're planning to do within the future. And we also launched a commentary app in our into our dashboards as well. So when people saw that they had particularly good or particularly bad performance, they were able to capture their learnings, what they had done within there. So finally, conscious of our time as well, where are we now? So I'm confident to say that data is no longer a blocker in the organisation. We have over 100 dashboards that are all being updated at least 4 times a day, and they cover the vast majority of the organisation, and we still have data that is being requested of us. But we're not just a dashboard team, and that was a big bit of changing our organisational understanding of us as well. So we have a data scientist within the team who is delivering our tricky questions and actually how can we make the change in the organisation and not just representing our number. Data is understood within the organisation and is used at all levels with clear feedback at the time, and we're getting clear feedback about the time that is saving our colleagues as they're accessing that data. We still have a small team, but we do have specialist roles, which means we can deliver more and we can deliver innovative work. The other team that I spoke about earlier on that we use to go in and present our data to to our station managers and email it out to them. The team still exists, but now they're actually able to use our data and to identify areas of risk within the county and proactively target our prevention and protection teams towards them. People, when they're writing reports now, they're writing reports because they've seen data and think that they need to do something to improve it, as opposed to writing a report and asking data retrospectively. I was interviewed by HMIC a few months ago, and they said, is data used within your organisation to drive organisational change? And I could actually say, yes, it is. And the inspectors were actually able to tell us that they'd heard that consistently throughout the interviews across the organisation, that people were doing stuff because they've seen it on their dashboard and they've got a dashboard for that, and they're getting the data sent to them to show them that. So people don't just have the dashboards, they're actively using it and are passionate about the dashboards. And people now value our team. They value the roles within the team and what we can deliver to the organisation. That's me, Nikki. I can pass back to you.
Thank you. So I guess just to conclude, in relation to kind of our top tips, let's get the slide back up again. There are kind of 8 top tips that myself and Lucy have kind of shared with you around the use of data analytics and cultivating a case for change. So as a quick summary, it doesn't matter whether you're designing or whether you're in delivery mode. It doesn't matter whether you are big as an organisation, whether you are small as an organisation. There are some kind of accelerants that help you to kind of progress and accelerate the case for change in your own organisation. So this would be understand your starting position, start with assessing your level of maturity, and reach out to different parts of your business and different stakeholders to help you get that starting position. Think about aligning your strategy to the why. Find your why. Always start with why. Align your objectives to some business strategies and business value and business goals that you are trying to achieve already within your own organisation. So a good data strategy is a business strategy infused with data, not the other way around. As Lucy said, have a clear vision for where you're actually trying to get to, and the why will help you to do that as well. And then make sure along the way you're building trust and creating FOMO. You want everyone to have a bit of that Sunday. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. So kind of how do we make sure we're building trust and credibility along that journey whilst creating kind of FOMO? As we mentioned, make it accessible, make it something that people can understand, make it something that people can kind of engage with from kind of different departments and different roles. And make sure you are kind of picking up the bits of work and you're prioritising them based on kind of advocates for change, ability to act as a result of that insight, and develop those case studies for change along the way, because that will really help you with your investment cases that you will pitch later on down the line. As Lucy mentioned, if you don't have any resources, just thinking about where you kind of go and speak to other people to beg, borrow and steal to create that kind of case for change, and also kind of maximising the assets that might be of interest in your organisation for the space of data analytics. And of course, don't forget about the kind of leadership buy-in and accountability that will help you to drive the right type of change and get sponsorship for the activities as you go through. So that's kind of everything that we've got to run you through. We do have an opportunity for any questions that you might want to ask at the end. So feel free to stick them in the chat, or if we can switch the functionality back to kind of raise hands. If you do have a question that you'd like to kind of pitch to myself or Lucy, then now's a great time to do so. I have noted that in the chat there was a question about recording. So we are recording all of these sessions. These will be available to anyone that's registered. So after the 3 days of events, we will be kind of providing links to both the presentations and the recordings after data talks. We'll also be setting up a kind of a place on the kind of portal which allows people to access documents that might have been shared, and any other relevant links like the local government data maturity framework that is available for other people to use. I'm just going to quickly see if we've got any questions that people want to ask. No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So thank you all very much for your time this morning. We have a full programme on today in relation to what's coming next. So for this afternoon, or sorry, this morning at 11 o'clock, we have a session that is hosted by Gavin about artificial intelligence within the public sector. That's an opportunity to hear from both Lottie, the London Office of Innovation and Technology, an opportunity to hear from Hackney Council, and an opportunity to hear from Microsoft about how people are actually using artificial intelligence in the public sector and some of the considerations we need to think through to be responsible in our use. After that, at 12 o'clock, we've got a session which is Getting Under the Bonnet of Artificial Intelligence, hosted by our very own Stephen Simpkins and Ben Unsworth in Essex County Council. And that will help us to explore the human to machine decision-making relationship. We have a session at 2 o'clock that's hosted by lots of different partners around analytics examples in the real world. And we close day one with kind of embracing the era of data literacy by learning to speak data, hosted by Claire McLean and Richard Pulliston, with guest speakers from the ONS.
Nikki, we've got some questions in the sidebar now. So let me go through to the first question. So you've had data scientists and Power BI developers, but who else would you need in terms of skills for recruitment in order to implement the data strategy? So if I just tell you who's within my team, if that's useful. So I have a data engineer who's responsible for getting the data from our on-prem solutions into our cloud-hosted storage, which we're currently using Synapse, but we're exploring the use of Fabric. I have a data scientist who reports into the data engineer. And then I also have an analytical function as well. So in the analytical function, that's headed up by my performance analyst, but I have a prevention and protection officer, a people's data officer, and I have another one, and I can't think of who it is at the moment. And then there's me that sits over the top of that. And we're also looking to fund a junior data engineer post, which will be sort of like a 2-year fixed term where people get to experience every bit of the data world in year 1, and then they can specialise in year 2. But like I said, we are quite a small team. The majority of our change was delivered with the one data engineer, and he was fueled by caffeine. So that's worked really well for us. I don't know, Nikki, if you've got anything else to add.
Yes, I guess we've chosen to embed data science skills within our analytical workforce rather than have a specific data scientist role. We have a data science fellow that really advocates for kind of building capabilities across our organisation, making sure we're bringing innovation from elsewhere and looking out of the Essex bubble, which is really, really helpful and accelerated our journey from the outset, really. So yeah, we have senior analysts with the data science skills embedded within their roles, but we also do have the kind of data developers, and I think that data engineering capability is really important to get the solid foundations right in relation to the skills. But we like to say that kind of people have a mixture of different skills in relation to understanding good problems, having good subject matter expertise in relation to the topic that they are working on, and understanding kind of the data that's available to them, the ability to apply advanced statistics and data science skills to those business problems and find the right method for the right kind of problem that we're trying to solve. And then people that can kind of really think about the narrative and the storytelling and the visualizations that need to come from generating the insight and playing that back to a customer. So those kind of well-rounded skills that sit within a kind of our analytical professions. But we have invested in some kind of specialist skills around kind of data visualization. And obviously we have the data science fellow to help us continue build capabilities and capacity in the team as well.
Super.
There is a good question from Glenn. So if you can reflect back to those early days in trying to kind of get buy-in for data analytics initiatives, was there one particular conversation, meeting, or even an email that sticks out as critically important to convincing those who latter became champions and strategic supporters?
Yeah, I've got one. I sat in a meeting, I think it was probably about 2018, 2019, with our change team and quite a few of our senior leaders at the time, and we were talking about our replacement of our control system, so the 999 system, and they were all talking about these great ideas that I had, and then I kind of said, we really need some data requirements built into this. And I remember somebody in the meeting flippantly said to me, oh, look, there you are on your soapbox again, talking about data, which irritated me a little bit. But then I remember having a conversation with one of the assistant directors as part of that meeting, so in front of everyone. And almost, Nikki, the reference that you made to the building the house analogy, I done the same sort of analogy with them. And I said, look, at the moment we have a house and we have lots of rooms in it, and the rooms are all of our different systems. If there's a person in every single room that wants a pizza, but unfortunately they've got no way of talking to each other. So everyone's called out to Deliveroo and got themselves a pizza delivered, but they all only wanted one slice of pizza. But if they actually spoke to each other, they would have just ordered one pizza and been able to share it between them, as opposed to having 10 pizzas and then lots of leftovers. And they were like, oh, Yeah, no, it is really important that the systems talk to each other. And I think it was from that moment onwards, actually, we got the need for data and the accessibility of data in our systems built into every single procurement piece that needed, that we went out beforehand. But it was that one moment of being able to explain it in a way with food that actually worked really well for our customers. And then we slowly got buy-in from that point onwards.
Nice.
Don't know
Excellent.
whether
I feel like we've made the audience very hungry talking about ice cream and pizza already, and it's not even 11 o'clock yet. I think from just my perspective, there was no one single kind of conversation, and Gavin might have some reflections around this, but I think for us it was a continual kind of keep repeating the messages and the kind of conversations in multiple different ways in order to suit your different audience members. So kind of how do you communicate what you're saying in different ways for different audiences, because everybody has a different role to play within the organisation, and everyone will engage with your materials differently. So for us, we had to become purple people, so it wasn't kind of red of kind of tech, it wasn't blue of business, but how do we make sure we kind of morphed into a purple person to make sure that we can translate what the value of data analytics could be to our kind of business in a way that was relatable to them and understandable. So I think for us it was just repeatable conversations in different ways to try to kind of land those messages for different audiences, just remembering the audience that you're speaking to rather than your own perspective from a data person, how you might communicate that. And then last question before we wrap up. So I think someone's asked, Stacey has asked kind of, are you able to share more around how you've calculated or achieved benefits? So this is something that, well, it is a work in progress. There is no specific kind of impact frameworks out there for data analytics. It's really hard to think about the types of impact that you are achieving. So we have developed a bit of a kind of impact framework to help think about the themes, whether that's kind of culture change, data literacy, whether that's kind of insight has improved speed of decision making, whether that's kind of insight that's formed into action and what action has happened as a result. So we do have different ways of kind of categorizing that, but really it was just kind of going through each of our projects and thinking about what has happened as a result and reflecting on that kind of 6 months later, sometimes a year later, to kind of go back and have those conversations about, well, what were you able to do with it? What difference did it make? And then kind of try to capture some of those in relation to efficiency savings, in relation to increasing time to access data to make decisions, or whether there was kind of things that happened as a result that prevented things from happening or increased our confidence in making decisions. So yeah, kind of thematically kind of capturizing different benefits in different ways and actually thinking what are the kind of costs associated with some of those activities, whether that's resources, whether that's efficiencies, whether that's actually preventing something from happening in the first place. Excellent. So thank you all very much for kind of your time this morning. As I say, I hope you kind of continue on the journey in relation to data talks. We've got a fantastic session lined up at 11 o'clock. And yeah, kind of I hope you all have good days.
Thank you all.
Thank you.